Canadians go to the polls in just under 3 weeks in what has been called the most significant federal election in this country's history, as Trump's tariffs threaten Canada's economy and a global recession. Well, joining me now are Jeff Rutledge, a conservative political strategist, and Selina Caesar-Chavannes, a former MP in Justin Trudeau's government, who left the party to sit as an independent MP and now works at a community organization. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Polls suggest that Carney is in the lead. What does Pierre Polyv, who, just a couple of months ago was poised to become the next prime minister after 2 years of holding a strong lead, what does Polyv have to do to maintain that lead or to get it back?
Part of it is continuing to shape the ballot box question. I think it has become clear over this election that Canadians aren't quite certain about exactly what that ballot box question is. Some consider it to be Trump. Others are very focused on the cost of living and the challenges that were raised in advance of this election beginning. And so I think he needs to continue to push the message that he's pushing, which is that he has a plan. We've seen a robust rollout of a platform, policy announcement almost every day touching on some of the key issues.
But are they being heard? I mean, we've heard him talk about housing. Late last week, he talked about intimate partner violence and coming down stronger on offenders. Are they resonating, or is the Trump tariffs and what's happening on the stock markets dominating everything?
I think it can be both at the same time in many ways. And I would, obviously it'll be, I think, rapidly dismissed by many from other parties. But if you do look at the turnout at his events, you're starting to see that motivation build. And I think, you can ask questions about how you convert the size of those rallies into people turning out of the ballot box.
Because there is a difference. You can have a massive rally, but I mean, is he already speaking to the converted? He needs to win over new supporters.
A big part of that is being able to drive momentum and make those individuals out there who are asking questions about whether or not they want to support Pierre or support Carney, if there is a broader sense of a movement of change in the country. And so being able to build that momentum is a really important part of any campaign. And I think you're starting to see that as, we do see the polls tightening, certainly in some areas. And most importantly, that's playing out in the demographics, that we're seeing the split between older Canadians and younger Canadians. And we have to figure out...
Male and female as well.
Exactly.
Selina, let's talk about Carney. He's never run politically before. This is his first campaign. As a former Liberal, well, you still represent Liberal views.
Of course, yes.
How do you think he's doing as a new leader?
I think he's doing really great. And to steal from you, the momentum, if Pierre's still looking for momentum, Carney's got it. And I think that momentum is going to continue right through to April 28th.
Well, the key is, does it continue? We saw what happened to Kamala Harris in the U.S., and that momentum started to fall.
We're not the same here, right? You have someone who is new politically. He provides a fresh face to politics. Pierre has been there forever. It's a change from Justin Trudeau. It's a fresh look, and I think that Canadians will pay attention to that. Also paying attention to the policies he brings forward, and also the energy that he brings to the landscape.
It's a different energy, though. I mean, Pierre Polyv, love him or hate him, he has a lot of energy. He is a polished politician. He knows how to perform in front of a crowd.
But we need someone who knows how to handle an administration in the U.S. and as well as here.
Definitely. I'm not disputing that. But do you think Canadians will forgive Mark Carney for not being the polished politician, or will they embrace that?
I don't think he needs to be polished, and I don't think he needs to be the political, stereotype. What he brings is a fresh ideas, fresh sort of perspectives on what Canada needs now. We're facing a U.S. administration that is really tough, but we also need to balance that with his values around community, economic development, for example. How do we get our communities not falling behind? How do we ensure that people not just survive the next 4 years, but thrive through the next 4 years? And I think that that's important to pay attention to, because we had problems long before Trump came along, and those ones need to be really salient.
But a lot of people would argue Canadians were ready to get rid of the Liberal government and have a Conservative government. We often do a pendulum swing, right? Yes. We haven't had a Conservative leader, PM, since Stephen Harper. Yeah. Are Canadians ready to embrace another Liberal government that many argue is very similar with the same people propping it up as Trudeau? Or do they want a completely new look at how to govern this country? Well, Jeff, I'll give that to you.
I was going to say that is the ballot question in many ways, right? And, we can see, whether it's the Trump impacts or whether it's the cost of living, we see Canadians doing the arithmetic on that. And it is a very important question. And I think when we talk about kind of the polished politician component of that, it's being able to have the gut instincts to respond appropriately to those pressures, right? And we've seen Mark Carney over the last week or so stumble in moments. He had almost a lob question put to him around tax policy and tax fairness, which he was unable to answer with any sort of sense of clarity. And in fairness, kind of detached himself from previous Liberal policies around tax fairness in Canada. So we're starting to see some of those cracks. I think it will very much play out in the debates that are coming up. If Mr. Carney is not able to show a strong performance in those debates, I think that Mr. Polyv will be all over him, and that may be an opportunity to move that vote.
We talked about the Trump tariffs dominating this election. What are the key issues that maybe haven't resonated enough that need to be brought to the forefront? Selena?
I think it's really related to economics. Canadians are still reeling post-pandemic. We haven't really come out of that. So there's going to be a lot of pressure towards what are you going to do for me in my pocketbook, for my family, for the affordability, for groceries, for being able to afford a house. There are these domestic pressures that still need to be paid attention to. And I think the other is, small businesses. When we think about what is happening in terms of those tariffs, the impact that is happening here, how do we start to ensure that those small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses that are the engine of our economy, continue to run? And that means the question that's still going on in my head is, why are we still talking about interprovincial trade barriers? Why are we still having those conversations that we knew were coming from when I was there in 2016, at the first Trump administration? So
but many could ask, why didn't the Liberal government do something
about it? There, yes, absolutely, and that's a fair question. And we have a new leader in place, and there may be an opportunity for that to change. But the other thing is, we didn't really hear some of the opposition talking about that, pushing that forward. We all got caught sort of with our mouths open in this new Trump administration. Small businesses still have the same challenges. People at home still have the same challenges as well.
All right. Well, it is going to come down to who gets the vote and where the votes lie.
Yep.
Because the Conservatives, their issue is they have a lot of strongholds, but they're not as spread out across the country. And it's all about, it's not how many votes you get, it's how many seats you get.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's very critical that the Conservatives are able to create more vote efficiency. I mean, that is a fundamental of any campaign, especially for the Conservatives. We've seen historically, there is very much an ability to secure the total popular vote, but that doesn't matter in the system that we function in right now necessarily, right? So they have to be able to convert, especially in the 905 GTA, in BC, and even in some areas of Quebec, they need to be able to convert that into real seats.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us on this very important question. Again, it's going to be the most fascinating and perhaps the most important federal election in this country's history.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.